Of course, digital stimulants and Niklas, he of course touched on all of these issues that we have as humans, that we have control, but not as much as we think we have, and also a lot of things are affecting us that makes us lose control, which is of course a lot of the problems we face as doctors. When we want people to live healthy and happier lives, we tell them to do this or that, but the problem is that no one plans to get obese, no one plans to get a depression, no one plans to do all these things that we then try to make them plan to get out of. So there are some issues around how we behave as humans, and what I'm going to talk about here is basically some of the underlying psychological factors that will hopefully make you leave from this talk with less guilt and less blame, and hopefully with a little more realization of how big the issue is and why you're the one who's going to do something about it. In the end of the presentation, you'll be able to download slides, so just pay attention as much as you can. Some months ago, I wrote this article for the weekly newsletter for doctors, which is actually the first of its kind here in Denmark for having someone to put words on what the problem with our smartphone is. And before I did this, no one has actually spent time on understanding why people are using technology in ways that can resemble other kinds of stimulation, which can cause addiction. My background is that I started out being a regular doctor and thought this was what I was supposed to work with, like people coming up telling me what their problem were. I would tell them, this is the problem, go home and take this pill or follow this advice, and then you will actually become healthy, and then that will be it. That will be my career, so to say. But I stumbled upon a big issue. How many of those people who attend the doctor do you actually think follow doctor's orders? 10 fingers are 100%. So how many people of the people going to the doctor actually follow doctor's orders? 50, 40, 20, 50, 50, 40? 10? Okay. All of you think it's 50 and more, raise your hands. So the difference between you guys and the rest is that you guys actually like your doctor. See, the thing is, you don't because you think it's... Because it's you. Yeah, but I'm not your doctor, otherwise you wouldn't say 10%. I know for a fact you're 100%, otherwise you know what will happen. I'll text you next, right? The thing is that I quickly realized that it's not about being clever if you want your people to, or your patient to follow orders. It's actually about being nice. But you don't learn how to be nice at med school. You basically just learn about what to do, what the problem is, and how to convey the message, but you don't actually learn that being nice is actually a foundational part of being a doctor. And that's why people, they don't adhere to their doctors. They don't follow doctors' orders. Actually, we have 5 advices. If you follow them, then you'll get a longer life. Who wants to live 10 to 12 extra life years? Who wants to live longer? Everyone wants. Okay, 5 advices. Are you ready? Eat healthily, exercise more, don't smoke, reduce your alcohol intake, and sleep better. That's it. If you follow those advice, then you will live longer. We know that for a fact. But no one is going to succeed following those 5 advices for the rest of your life. Why? Because you're human. We know that only 50% follow doctor's orders when they go to the doctor. So it's not lack of knowledge that's the problem. It's our ability to actually follow through. So that was the thing I discovered after having worked as a doctor for around 8 years, until I found myself standing in front of this garage. This garage is probably the most important garage in the world and has affected all of you guys and all of your lives in ways that you can't realize. This is where Steve Jobs created Apple, and Apple then created smartphones, and smartphones then started to control all of our lives, right? So why am I standing there? Is because I discovered very early on in my career that actually those who had cracked the code of behavior were the tech companies. They had found out how to make people do things they wanted them to, and the reasons why I'm standing there is because I wanted to get the same kind of power, because I thought if I could make people just as addicted to eat healthily, then like to cat videos, then, I would be probably the most effective doctor in the world. So with that knowledge, I came back to Denmark and started working with digitalization as like a natural part of healthcare. But it was also in this mix process where I discovered that people were actually using technology, but in ways that we couldn't control. And that's why I started writing books about all the things that I have thought a lot about. Namely, we're not the creatures or the persons or the people we think we are. We are a little bit different. And the big question is that actually what controls our behavior, right? First, the good news. You're clever, intelligent creatures who are conscious, who can learn things and who can plan things, and you can learn difficult stuff if you focus and concentrate. You can plan ahead, and if you at some point in the future want to become an astronaut, you can then focus on what's required to get that goal, right, or to get to that goal. But the issue is that we're not planning and controlling at all times. If you plan, you can get really good at something and exercise and practice, but it's not everything you try that you will succeed in, right? So that's one way of being human, where you plan, and sometimes your plans, they fail, and sometimes they succeed. But then there is another issue, right? We have all the things in the cellar or the bottom of our brain, which isn't that effective. It's behavior patterns that controls us in ways that we haven't control over. We don't plan for these things that happens down in the bottom of our brain. As Nicholas talked about, stimulations or things that affects our dopamine system, our rewarding systems, are really important to understand. We can easily see that this puppy likes food, right? Which is because stimulation that drives our reward system or affects our reward system will work a bit like magnets. It will pull us to itself. And the same goes for humans. If they taste sugar, as you saw before, you will have an immediate reaction where sugar is something you crave again and again. If this same dopamine system was activated when you ate broccoli, we would have looked completely different, right? So that's why it's important to understand a lot of the things that we're currently fighting is things that can cause loss of control. Everyone knows what we should do, but still knowing and doing are separate systems in our brain. And what about using smartphones? Well, you can use your smartphones on a conscious way. You can take it and you can check Instagram and put it away again, but it's not designed to be used by conscious creatures, because chimpanzees can use Instagram exactly like humans can. They can scroll up and down, they can double click, look at naked apes, and if that's probably not interesting, right? And then they can move on. And then again, other parts of our brain reacts without us even being able to plan that, which is also something that drives our behavior, exactly like other creatures that has to react. Why? Because reactions are closely associated to survival. So we don't plan for these reactions, which means that a big part of our brain doesn't think, it basically just reacts. So who are we? Conscious creatures who now and then reacts, or are we reactive creatures who now and then thinks? Because it's two completely different creatures. Let's take a look at what happens in our brain. I'll show you a picture of a person. The moment you understand who the person is or recognize the person, raise your hands, okay? 3, 2, 1, boom. Easy, Adele. Everyone knows it's Adele, more or less, but you don't know that it's a different monster version of Adele, which you can't see because your brain doesn't recognize that her eyes and mouth is turned the right way, but the rest is not, unless you see the context. And why are dentists important? Because even if this guy is lacking his eyebrow, you don't see his eyebrow, you look at his mouth. And what does that mean? Well, it means that your brain reacts first, and then you reflect on what you're looking at. So reactions will always beat our reflections. And all of this kind of knowledge is something that you can find in this book by Daniel Kahneman, who won the Nobel Prize for his work, where he described these two systems, where our reactions and our emotions and all the subconscious processes, they are constantly moving ahead and making us react in specific ways. And the problem is we have built a world today based on thinking creatures and completely avoided all the things that we think, oh, if you have a problem, I'll tell you what to do and then expect you to follow through. Never going to happen. This is the issue we have and that we face. In other words, impulsive and emotional reactions eats intentional logical thinking for breakfast. Of course, not in you guys here, you're special. It's other people we're talking about. Okay, so this is the starting point. That's how we are as humans. This is our brain. And what happens when you apply this kind of business logic to this brain? The company that had this slogan in the 90s was Meta or Facebook. And what they have done through the years is obviously to push out technology that is close to people. Of course, Apple created the smartphone, but then how we started using the smartphone was what made us the creatures we are today. In 2005, 20 years ago, it would be the best experience standing in a big crowd where you could pull out your phone, but still you were able to. You have to focus on what was going on on the scene. Then some years after, you got access to your phone, and you can use that as a smartphone, right? And take photos and camera, and you can start listening to music and use it as the best tool at all. But what then happens from 2013, you had a question before around 2013, something happens there. And what happens is two things. First up, you get a camera on the front screen, and the second thing that happens is that you get social media on your screen, which means that you can then start taking photos of yourself and put them on social media to show all your peers that you are getting on top of your hierarchy, or you're getting access to selfies with Hillary Clinton or other things. So you can suddenly start to improve your acknowledgement and get higher up in your peer system, so you get social recognition. The problem with that is that you can never, as Nicholas also said, there's not a limit to how popular you can get, which means that you're constantly start focusing on getting higher and higher, and this will ultimately drive your behavior in ways that will cause loss of control, right? What I saw when I was in Silicon Valley 12 years ago was that Facebook at that time was heavily focusing on how to exploit this obsession with our emotional stimulation. They worked on something they call psychographics. Psychographics is basically behavior that can be tracked back to who these people are. If I know something about what interests you, I'll be able to impact on your behavior because I'll just show you more of what you reacted on in history, because that will define your future. You don't plan what you do online, and if you don't plan it, someone else has planned it for you. This is some of the knowledge they had these years ago. They could easily say, okay, how are the world's discount moms feeling today? Like they could track down to individuals how their emotions were based on these data points. They have made a lot of research around how to impact on people's behavior by filtering the feed that you get served on your phone through algorithms. So positive impact or positive content will create a positive impact, but ultimately it'll get a lower engagement. But if you put people in a negative spiral, like a lot of negative content, then you will see a higher engagement because we're all attracted to people who are suffering in some ways. That's why if you drive by a traffic accident on the other way or the other side of the road, you will see a high risk because people will stop to look at if there is any blood or something like that. We can't stop looking at something terrible. And these ways our brain is working has been exploited in ways that we can't control. See, it's not a problem to use tech. It's a problem if you can't stop using tech. And that's basically what they have done, to put all of these different ways you use technology and create emotional stimulation of it. So you can basically get any kind of emotion out of your phone. And that is one of the biggest issues we have today, because technology that knows us better than we know ourselves, or algorithms, or these platforms that knows us better than we know ourselves, can control us more than we think that they can. And what is the issue? And how do you do it? You can easily create what I call cliffhanger brains. On the next slide, I'll show you the 3 principles that will allow you to walk right out of this lecture. And if you understand this principle, they're really simple to understand. When you understand them, you'll be able to walk directly out from this lecture and make anyone do anything. Who wants to see the next slide? Right? That's how easy it is. This is why you stop in your feed and click something. Why? Because what you contain are reactions and emotions and thoughts. What I did there was to make you react on something that felt really compelling or interesting, no matter what your thoughts tell you. And that's why all of us are victims of algorithms that knows us better than we know ourselves, that creates emotions in us, that creates reactions, that eats up time, focus, and ultimately life. We all know sleep is important, right? Netflix knows that too. And that's why Netflix is constantly trying to make us sleep less. Why? Because that's how they make money. So these companies knows how to drive our behavior in ways that harms us, and they don't give a damn about it. Which means that all of you know that if you have these big companies that harms health, like food, ultra-processed food companies, alcohol, tobacco, and etc. All the stimulant industries, they're regulated for good reasons, right? You wouldn't give your kids cigarettes or kids alcohol, etc., etc. Why? Because that would completely mess up their rewarding system. But how come we then introduce these companies to our own lives, to our kids' lives, and completely lost track of what was happening, why it was happening, and how we expected these kids to turn out? One example of how these companies work, this woman who has Sarah Wynne Williams, she just wrote a book called Careless People. She's worked inside Facebook, and she gives one example of how they use these exploitations, this emotional information about the users against the user to create more profit. I think the sound is not here. Okay, fine, no problem. But what she tells us here is that they know when, for instance, a teenager deletes a selfie. They put a selfie on the platform, then deletes it. At that exact moment, they know that she's not feeling, she's feeling worthless or doesn't. If you want to show the video. Oh, you had. Go back and then okay. Oh, it's because I couldn't hear it, but obviously I'm not wearing.
The company had developed up the ability to assess when a teenager was feeling worthless or helpless. So to give you an example, if a 13-year-old girl deletes a selfie, she looks at the selfie and she's like, I don't actually want this on my Insta. I don't feel great about it. That's information that the company was able to take, and they were able to provide that as research to a beauty advertiser. Because to that beauty advertiser, they know that the moment that teen girl is feeling worthless is a really good time, from their perspective, to serve them a beauty advertisement. And that makes me feel sick.
Yeah. So it's basically just like having your kid or a girlfriend or a boyfriend coming to tell you, or kid or daughter or your girlfriend come to tell you that, oh, I don't look nice today, then say, oh, that's a shame, you feel ugly, let's find some makeup to cover it. I mean, people need support and not a product to fix the things that they don't feel good about, right? The thing is that self-worth and not feeling good enough and all of those kind of vulnerable emotions in teenagers are a good business. This is why they made like $11 billion from advertising to minors in 1 year in US alone. And that's also why addiction is happening fast. This is a girl in 8th grade, 10 hours a day on this on her smartphone. A girl in 6th grade, 82 hours a week on her smartphone, right? That will obviously turn it into a reactive creature. And when you put AI into the mix, you will definitely see the same issues, because where social media affected our emotional system and destroyed that, AI is now doing a lot of harm to our reflections, our ability to focus, our ability to think ourselves. And studies are coming out now that if you use AI instead of your own way of thinking, then of course you will see a reduced cognitive reflection ability, which is also why we really need to think hard about who is creating these tools that we're using or our kids are using. And that's the difference between what you can call the attention economy, where our attention was stolen and we were fed with advertisement or ads instead, whereas intention economy is what I think would be the thing that helps us. We have intentions. How can we get technology that helps us reach our goals? So it's not that tech is bad, it's who creates tech and how they earn their money is what we should be focusing on. So finally, what to do about it? Instead of move fast, break things, let's start moving slow and fix things. So some of the strategies that I think we can start to improve our lives with is to think of what we look at on our screens like what we put in our mouth. How many of you think about what you eat? Okay. How many of you only go for organic apps? See, that's where we are now. We have to think about, is this mental fast food or is it something that we want to use because it helps us? And we have to really start going into digital fasting as well as physical fasting. Create controlled spaces where we're alone in our own minds and where nothing demands our attention. For instance, like using black and white screens. And finally, how do you feel? That's a really important question. Many people don't stop because they're constantly being bombarded with a lot of other things that wants you to feel in specific ways. The moment we stop listening to ourselves, understanding ourselves, is also the moment we stop understanding ourselves and taking control of what's important. So what I'll leave you with today is 5 questions, which actually are the core foundation of how we should start thinking about our lives. What's in our minds and what's in our hearts, right? What matters to us? What takes our time and what gives it back? Who decides how you feel, really? And what would you regret not giving of yourself to more? And finally, which I think is probably most important, whose well-being is silently shaped by your presence or your non-presence? We have become really good at being there without being there. And that's what I think is one of the most important things to focus on, because we know that there's one factor that beats everything else when it comes to living a happy and healthier lives: closer and deep relationships to people that matters to us. So this is the final thoughts about how to live our lives. Stop thinking about chasing a lot of different solutions that could improve your life and start listening to yourself about looking at people around you who could help you live a better life. There's also a reason to your question before, how you can, we know for a fact married men live longer than unmarried men because their spouse kicks them to the doctor. Find someone who cares for your future more than you do yourself. Then you will live a longer life. Feel free to download your slides here. And also feel free to connect. And if you want to dive a little bit deeper into these kind of messages, I have a few books over here that you can buy if you want to. But thanks for your attention, and maybe Emil has some questions now.
Thank you so much. Give him a big round of applause.
Woo!
I mean, I think you kind of did talk a little bit about it, but where is the what's the one thing you would change if you were, let's say, minister of or secretary of, I don't know.
Yeah, I would at least I would enforce the age limits.
Yeah?
Yeah, because we need free-range kids. We need
Free-range kids?
Yeah, just like
chicken.
Chickens.
Sure.
Right
Grass-fed?
Yeah, grass-fed.
Oh, I love
Free-range
grass-fed.
kids who plays out in fields, who are curious, who are not constantly...
Not playing in soy.
Not playing in soy. Exactly.
And
yeah. No, I
oat.
mean, we need to basically make childhood great again.
Maca? M-A-C-A?
Matcha latte, yeah.
Matcha.
We need a matcha latte.
Okay,
sorry.
so that's
Yeah.
the age thing. Do you think that's going to be enough? Don't you think we'll find a workaround? Like, remember what we did when we, when the alcohol was not allowed?
Yeah.
We shipped it in from Norway, or some people just standing in the backyard, churning it themselves. I don't know the verb, but
Not all of us
wouldn't they?
did that, but yeah,
I mean,
I
we all
get-
did. I mean, won't these are bright? The children are fucking
Yeah.
smart. Won't they find a way around it?
But-
Is that really root cause that you're dealing
No,
with
so
here?
one thing you need to do is obviously to limit the damages, but you also have to put alternatives in front of them, which are, in Denmark we have this foreninger, the clubs, the social, the music, where they come together, play together for something that's higher, that has a higher purpose than themselves. We need to create like real connections in real life that gets like emotional stimulation by humans. Instead of get like solitary or single solo stimulation by algorithms. We need to get out of our own head and have like, understand how people are communicating in real life.
I'm reading a book called The Future Ministry, I don't know, Fremtidsministeriet,
Yeah.
at the moment, and it's about the climate change in the future, and they make a crypto based on your own data.
Yeah.
So a currency where you kind of you walk away from all these social media and you kind of make a new platform where your currency is your time, devotion, your whatever, all your data, your attention, all those things. And I think it was such an interesting approach to it. I'm like, wouldn't I rather just sell that instead of just having them mine my own crypto?
But we actually already have a term for the currency among people that matters.
Okay.
It's called love.
But I want to quantify that. I want cash in my...
Yeah,
I
but
want
you can
some,
quantify that in oxytocin.
Yes, okay.
How much oxytocin do you get in your everyday life? I know you want it in your bank account,
yes.
but
I want both. I
but
prefer
you
both.
also know that it doesn't matter in the long run, right?
That is absolutely...
You can be lonely and rich, and you can be poor and happy.
lonely. That's still worse, Imran. That's
Yeah, I
still
know,
worse. I'll give you that.
But there's also something in between.
Are
that.
you and all? Last thing is, are you positive for the future? I think that's. Where are you right now? I know that it depends
I
on
am
what day I
positive.
ask you, but where are you right now?
Right now, I'm actually positive because I did like a lecture for all the first graders in one of the biggest business colleges here in Copenhagen, thousands of students. And when I talk to these students and I say, hey, who do you want to be in 3 years when you leave this college? I see young people with hope who wants to do things better. And that makes me hopeful, of course, right? And I also see that today the opportunities we have, AI and all the things I've talked about, and also the knowledge we have today, right, is something we can put to a better use. Right now, one of the most important startups I'm doing at all, that's the most important startup I'll ever do, and you'll be a test driver for it next year.
God.
It's called Baby Pilot.
Yeah.
It will help you in the first 1,000 days of your newborn
That
kid's
is
life.
a good
and
idea.
that will help you
I don't
avoid
even
all
have
the
a
mistakes.
child yet, but I'm already.
Now you're
fucking
planning to get a
terrified.
child to
Yes.
get that subscription. I understand, yeah. No, but I know you're scared for that, right? And that's also where you will mess up your kid's life if
Yes, 100%.
you don't have the right
I
knowledge,
mess it up.
tools, and all
But
of that.
The problem is, I've come to learn that I mess it up just like not having the perfect semen, and then not the perfect conception, not even I mean, there's so many ways I can fuck it up. I'm already fucking up. I haven't even started yet.
You remember what I said before, right?
Yeah, right. You're
You
right. You're
remember what the most
Yes,
important
yes.
thing is, right?
Come
Emil,
to-
and this goes out to you.
Yes. I do feel better. I have a better sleep score now than ever, Imran. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Anyway, give him a big round of applause, please.
Thank you very
Imran
much.
Rashid, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you, sir.